They never told you how heavy it would feel not just in your arms, helping someone out of bed, not just in your legs, after another night with 2 hours of sleep, but in your heart. The kind of weight that builds slowly, quietly until one day, you realize you haven't taken a deep breath in weeks. No one tells you that caregiving, this act of love, loyalty, and sacrifice, can also leave you feeling invisible, bitter, isolated, and deeply exhausted. And the worst part, you probably won't even see it coming. By the time most caregivers recognize the signs of burnout, it's already taken a toll on their body, their mind, and their relationships. But not today. Today, we shine a light on what no one talks about until it's too late. We're going to explore what caregiver burnout really is beyond the buzzword. We'll talk about how it feels, how it starts, and how to stop it. You'll hear about Susan, a 62-year-old woman caring for her mother with dementia. She puts on a brave face every day, always saying, "I'm fine," even though she cries in the shower at night when no one is watching. You'll hear about James, a retired engineer, now full-time caregiver for his wife. He hasn't seen his friends in 18 months. He misses his old life, but he'd never admit it out loud. These are real stories. Maybe they're your story, too. We'll uncover the subtle warning signs, the chronic fatigue, the guilt, the forgotten hobbies, the silent resentment. We'll dive into the emotional conflicts caregivers face every day, the belief that asking for help is selfish, or that taking a break means letting someone down. But most importantly, you'll learn real, practical strategies to protect your well-being without giving up the person you're caring for. Because you can't pour from an empty cup, and you shouldn't have to suffer in silence. Caregiver burnout affects millions, especially those over 50. In fact, according to the CDC and the National Alliance for Caregiving, nearly 1 in 5 adults in the U.S. provide unpaid care to an older adult, and over 60% of them report symptoms of emotional distress. Yet only a small fraction ever seek help. Why? Because society often glorifies the caregiver role, while ignoring the cost. This video is not about guilt. It's about awareness. It's about giving you permission to feel tired and to need care too. It's about learning to say, "I need help," and knowing that doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. So if you're feeling drained, if you're constantly putting yourself last, if you're wondering how much longer you can keep this up, stay with us. This is your space now. This is your time. Let's begin. Let's start by calling it what it is. Caregiver burnout isn't just being tired. It's not just stress. It's a state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion that goes beyond what a good night's sleep or a weekend off can fix. It's what happens when the demands of caregiving outweigh the resources available for too long. And for many, especially those caring for aging parents or partners, burnout creeps in without any loud warning. It builds slowly, disguised as love, duty, or guilt. According to the National Institutes of Health, caregiver burnout is common among adults over 50, especially those caring for people with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, stroke survivors, or advanced chronic illnesses. Women are disproportionately affected, but men suffer too often silently. Burnout isn't a sign of weakness. It's a natural human response to prolonged emotional strain, especially when you're constantly giving, but rarely receiving. So what does it look like? Imagine this. You start waking up more tired than when you went to bed. Meals are skipped or eaten standing up. You begin forgetting things, not just appointments, but words mid-sentence. You snap at people, then feel terrible about it. You feel numb, like you're watching your own life from the outside. You stop calling friends back. You say, "I'm fine," even when your body is aching and your heart feels heavy. You feel guilty for needing space, and then guilty for resenting the very person you love. That is caregiver burnout. The World Health Organization recognizes burnout as a serious condition, not only in professional settings, but in unpaid roles like family caregiving. And yet, few caregivers are ever taught what to look for. The signs are subtle at first: fatigue, sadness, withdrawal. But over time, they can lead to depression, anxiety, weakened immune function, and even increased mortality. Yes, caregivers who don't receive adequate support are more likely to die early. That's how serious this is. So why don't more people talk about it? Because society expects caregivers, especially women, to carry the burden with grace, to sacrifice without question, to smile through the pain. But here's the truth: taking care of someone else doesn't mean abandoning yourself. Burnout is not inevitable, but it is predictable, and that means it's preventable. Before we move on, take a moment. How often have you felt irritable, hopeless, or emotionally drained lately? When was the last time someone asked you how you're doing? When was the last time you told the truth? If any part of this sounds familiar, you're not broken. You're not alone. You're just burned out. And now that we've named it, we can start to change it. Your body always knows. Even before your mind is ready to admit it, your body whispers the truth. Caregiver burnout doesn't arrive all at once. It speaks in symptoms, little signs that something inside you is breaking down. But too often, we dismiss them as normal or just tired. Let's talk about the red flags, the ones we overlook, until they become crises. It begins with fatigue, but not the kind you can sleep off. You wake up tired. You go through the day in a fog. Even when you do sleep, it never feels restful. Some caregivers describe it as living underwater. Everything feels slow, heavy, distant. Then there's irritability. You snap over small things: a misplaced spoon, a spilled drink, a repeated question. Then comes the guilt. Guilt for being short-tempered. Guilt for feeling frustrated. Guilt for even wanting a moment to yourself. You might start feeling emotionally numb. Not sad, not angry, just blank. You move through the motions, but nothing feels real. You laugh less, cry more, or sometimes you just stop feeling altogether. Another sign: isolation. You stop reaching out to friends. You ignore text messages. You decline invitations, not because you're busy, but because you're just not yourself anymore. There are also physical symptoms: headaches, digestive issues, tension in your neck and shoulders, frequent colds or minor illnesses. Your immune system is waving a red flag. Over time, your self-care disappears. You forget to eat, or you eat mindlessly. You skip medications. You cancel your own doctor appointments. You stop doing the things that used to bring you joy: gardening, walking, music, reading. And all of this, you hide. Because caregivers are supposed to be strong. Because it's not about me. Because they have it worse. But the truth is, your pain matters. Your exhaustion is valid. You do not need to hit rock bottom before you deserve help. Let's pause and reflect. Have you found yourself avoiding mirrors? Noticing your shoulders stay tense even when you lie down? feeling like you're watching your life from a distance rather than living it. These are not minor inconveniences. They are calls for help from your own body and mind. James, the retired engineer we mentioned earlier, didn't realize he was burned out until he forgot how to get home from the grocery store. He had driven that route for 25 years. He broke down in the parking lot, terrified. That's the cost of silence. That's the cost of waiting too long. But now you know the signs, and knowing means you can act. We'll talk soon about how to do that. But first, we need to understand what happens when burnout is left untreated, because the consequences are more serious than most realize. Burnout doesn't just affect how you feel, it affects who you are. And when left unaddressed, it can cause lasting damage to your health, your relationships, and your sense of self. Let's begin with your body. Studies from the National Institutes of Health have shown that long-term caregiver stress significantly raises the risk of heart disease, high blood pressure, and diabetes. The body, in a constant state of alert, produces elevated levels of cortisol, the stress hormone. Over time, this weakens the immune system, slows healing, and leads to chronic inflammation. Some caregivers develop ulcers. Others struggle with weight gain or loss. Many simply live with aches and pains that never go away. And then there's the toll on your mental health. Caregivers are at much higher risk of depression and anxiety, especially those caring for loved ones with dementia. In fact, caregivers of people with Alzheimer's are over twice as likely to experience depressive symptoms compared to non-caregivers, according to the Alzheimer's Association. You may start feeling hopeless or even resentful toward the person you're caring for. And that resentment becomes guilt, and the guilt becomes shame, and the shame, it keeps you silent. Now think about your relationships. Burnout doesn't just isolate you, it can quietly erode the bonds with the people you love. You might find yourself avoiding phone calls. You might feel jealous of siblings who don't help enough, but still get praise. You may argue with your partner, withdraw from your children, or feel like a stranger to your friends. Even your relationship with the person you're caring for can suffer. Mom used to make you laugh, now her confusion frustrates you. Your husband's gentle touch once made you feel safe, now it feels like another task. These feelings are common, and they're heartbreaking. But here's the cruel irony. The more burned out you are, the less likely you are to get help. Why? Because burnout warps your thinking. You start believing things like, no one else can do this right. I'm the only one they trust. If I take a break, something bad will happen. Or worst of all, I don't matter anymore. These are not truths. They are symptoms. And like any symptom, they signal something deeper that needs care. And then there are the invisible losses. The things you no longer talk about. The art you stopped painting. The garden you let overgrow. The trips you never took. The music you don't play anymore. These pieces of your identity fade quietly until you begin to forget who you were before caregiving began. Let that sink in. Burnout is not just about stress. It's about disconnection from your body, your mind, your joy, and your life. But here's the good news. What's been lost can often be reclaimed. Not overnight, not perfectly, but slowly, with support, with honesty, with boundaries. Before we talk about how to get there, we need to explore something difficult: why asking for help feels so impossible, and what it takes to break that silence. If there's one thing almost every caregiver struggles with, it's asking for help. not because you don't need it, but because somewhere along the way, you were taught that needing help means you're weak, or worse, that you're failing. Let's talk about that. Many caregivers carry invisible beliefs that make it nearly impossible to reach out. Some of them come from childhood, the idea that we must always be strong, that others come first, that showing emotion is a burden, that love means sacrifice. Others come from culture. In many communities, caregiving is seen not just as a responsibility, but an honor. And it is. But that cultural expectation can also make caregivers feel guilty for even thinking about their own needs. And then there's shame. Shame that you're tired. Shame that sometimes you don't want to do it anymore. Shame that you wish things could go back to how they were before the illness, the diagnosis, the decline. You may look around and think, other people do this without complaining. What's wrong with me? The truth? Nothing is wrong with you. Caregiving is beautiful. Yes, but it's also relentless. And pretending otherwise only makes the burden heavier. Many caregivers are also held back by a powerful lie. I'm the only one who can do this right. This mindset is understandable. You know every detail of your loved one's routine. You anticipate their needs before they even speak. You've built a rhythm even if it's exhausting. Letting someone else step in feels risky or even disloyal. But here's the reality. You are not a machine. You are not replaceable, but you are human. And humans need rest. They need breaks. They need support. Refusing help doesn't protect your loved one, it simply ensures that your own well-being is sacrificed in silence. Sometimes the resistance is logistical. You don't know where to ask. You don't think you can afford help. You worry that if you ask once, you'll be judged forever, or that the person you're caring for will feel betrayed. These are real concerns and they require compassion, not criticism. But here's something powerful to remember. Asking for help is an act of care, not just for yourself, but for the person you're looking after. When you are rested, supported, and emotionally balanced, you can give your loved one something no one else can: your presence, your patience, your genuine love, not just your survival. So what does asking for help look like? It might mean reaching out to a sibling, even one who hasn't been involved. It might mean hiring respite care or contacting a local nonprofit. It might be as small as asking a neighbor to sit with your loved one while you take a walk. The help you need doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to begin somewhere, because the truth is, you don't have to do this alone. You were never meant to. In the next section, we'll look at real, accessible ways to start building a support system, one that lifts you up rather than wears you down. But first, ask yourself this: what would happen if you gave yourself permission to rest? Now that we've named the pain, let's talk about the path forward. Caregiver burnout isn't something you just push through. It requires care your own. And the good news is, there are real, accessible ways to start feeling better even today. Let's begin with something simple but powerful. Pause. Just for a moment. Right now, take a deep breath in and out. That right there is a start. Because healing from burnout doesn't begin with grand gestures. It begins with giving yourself permission to stop, reflect, and ask, what do I need right now? One of the most effective tools available is respite care. Respite care allows someone else, whether a professional, a volunteer, or even a family member, to temporarily take over your duties, so you can rest, recover, or simply live your life outside of the caregiving role. In the U.S., organizations like the National Respite Network, the Alzheimer's Association, and local area agencies on aging offer respite options. In the UK, the NHS Carers Direct program can connect caregivers with short-term relief services. In Canada and Australia, similar supports exist through provincial health agencies and aged care programs. These services are not about passing the responsibility, they're about sharing it sustainably. Another vital tool, support groups. Whether online or in person, these spaces can be life-changing, not just for advice, but for connection. To look into someone else's eyes or screen and hear, "Yes, me too." Talking openly with other caregivers breaks the isolation. It reminds you that you're not alone in your fear, your frustration, your fatigue, or your love. Next, consider professional counseling or therapy. Many caregivers benefit from talking to a mental health professional, someone who can help you process the complex emotions that come with this role. Sadness, anger, resentment, grief, all of it is valid, and all of it deserves space. In many countries, there are low-cost or free options specifically for caregivers. Check with local health services or nonprofit organizations in your area. Then there's the power of boundaries. Start small. Maybe it's telling a family member you can't do everything alone. Maybe it's blocking off 1 hour a week for something that feeds your soul: a walk, a book, a nap. Maybe it's saying no without explaining yourself. Boundaries are not walls. They're bridges to healthier relationships and to your own recovery. And finally, remember your identity. You are more than a caregiver. You are a person with dreams, tastes, talents, and needs. Reconnect with anything that reminds you of who you are. Music, writing, painting, prayer, nature, movement. Because burnout happens when we give everything away and leave nothing for ourselves. Start reclaiming even a little of that space. You are allowed to need care. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to heal. In our next and final section, we'll talk about what it means to care for yourself not as an afterthought, but as a priority. Because to keep giving, you have to stay whole. You matter. Let those words land for a moment. You not just as a caregiver, but as a person deserve rest, peace, joy, and healing. In this final section, let's talk about how you can care for yourself not just so you can keep going, but because your well-being is a priority in itself. First, compassion begins with you. Caregivers often speak to themselves in harsh, critical tones. "I should be stronger. I shouldn't feel this way. I don't have time to be tired." But imagine if a friend said those things about themselves. What would you say to them? You'd probably respond with kindness, empathy, support. It's time to offer that same compassion to yourself. Try replacing criticism with care. Instead of "I'm failing," try "I'm doing the best I can." Instead of "I shouldn't feel overwhelmed," say "It's okay to feel overwhelmed. This is hard." Next, prioritize what fills you. Your energy is not infinite. So be intentional with what you consume emotionally, physically, mentally. Sleep is not optional. Movement is not selfish. Nutrition is not indulgent. If you can, build small daily rituals of care, stretching for 10 minutes in the morning, playing a favorite song while preparing breakfast, stepping outside to feel sunlight on your face, eating a real meal, not leftovers from someone else's plate. These small acts build resilience over time. They help your nervous system regulate. They reconnect you with your body, a body that's been working nonstop for someone else. Don't underestimate the power of hobbies and joy. Caregivers often feel like they've lost the parts of themselves that once made them feel alive. So go back to the garden, pick up that book, paint again, sing again, call the friend who made you laugh. You don't have to wait for a perfect window of free time. Joy can live in 10-minute pockets, and those pockets are oxygen. Also, remember, you are allowed to ask for space, to say, I need 30 minutes alone, to take a walk while someone else watches over your loved one, to close the door, breathe, and not feel guilty. This isn't about abandoning the person you care for. It's about protecting the person they depend on you. Finally, connect. Don't wait until the breakdown. Don't wait until the hospital. Build your circle now, even if it starts with just one person. Support doesn't always come in big, dramatic interventions. Sometimes it's a neighbor who brings you soup. Sometimes it's a nurse who listens. Sometimes it's watching this video and remembering you are not invisible, because you are not. You are doing something heroic and also deeply human. You are showing up, day after day, often without thanks or rest. But hear this, you deserve to be cared for too. Not someday, not eventually. Now, in our closing, we'll remind you why taking care of yourself is the most generous, powerful thing you can do for them and for you. Let's end with a truth that may be hard to believe, but it's one you need to hear. You are not alone. Right now, millions of caregivers around the world are walking the same invisible path. Some are your neighbors. Some sit beside you in waiting rooms. Some are watching this very video, nodding through tears. They, like you, have sacrificed. They, like you, have felt guilt and love in the same breath. They, like you, have wondered if they can keep going. And they, like you, are not broken. You may not wear a uniform. You may not get paid. But what you do matters. It matters deeply. You hold hands through confusion. You speak gently through frustration. You adapt again and again, even when no one is watching. But now, it's time for you to be seen. This isn't just about preventing burnout. It's about recognizing your value. It's about saying, I matter too. If anything in this video resonated with you, take that as your sign. Start today. Send the text. Ask for help. Take that walk. Join that support group. Breathe fully for the first time in weeks. And remind yourself, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do it all. You only have to stay human. Because when caregivers care for themselves, everyone wins. Your strength is real, but so is your need for care, and you are worthy of that today and always.